It's all up to you. You have the power to make decisions for your life. Recently, I was speaking to this young man who is trying to figure out some of his life, and he was trying to buy a house. Tell me, how I'm going to go about this thing. I'm 33 years old. I want to, start to prepare to get my house. And I said, all right, cool. So what do you want? What kind of house do you want? And he was describing it. I said, how much do you think you're going to cost to invest in, to spend, to get your first house? He's like, all right, da 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 da. He's explaining these numbers to me. And out of that, I said, well, the first principle of going after anything is to first decide what it is. What is it you want? And what is the financial implication, or what's the cost for that? See, some people say, man, I want to buy a house by the time I'm 30 or whatever. And if you ask what kind of house, they have no clue. What price range are you looking at? They're not sure. So the first thing that I spoke to him about was, okay, listen, what is the price? So he told me the price. I think at that time it was like 300 and something thousand. I'm like, okay, great. And then the next question is, I asked him, when do you want to do it? See, for a dream to turn into a goal, it has to have a date. If not, it's just a dream. You just dream about it every day. And as you dream every day about it, nothing happens. But once you put a date, now that dream turns into a goal. And then you can start planning towards that goal. So he said, okay, I want to do it in 2 years or so. So we kind of talked and said, okay, it's going to take, 24 months for you to be ready. So I'm like, all right, let's work backwards now. Because you always start with the end in mind and then work back. And so I said, okay, 24 months. What is the deposit going to look like for that house? And then we did some basic calculations. I said, all right, he says, I'm going to need to save up, at least $35,000. I'm like, all right, sounds good. And then we started to divide. I said, 24 by 35, how much more you need to save towards it? How much do you have saved already? He said, not much, maybe I think 1,000 or 2. I'm like, all right, this is what you need to do. But then we looked at his present situation. And as he looked at it, he's like, well, I don't have that much, because after making the division, there's a target amount that needs to be saved every month. So it's okay, now look at what you're spending on. Do you need to make a decision on what you're spending on because you want this thing called your house? It's like, yeah, so and when we came down to it, he had this really beautiful truck. And I said, well, he said, all right, if I turn that in, that's going to save me about $1,000 a month. I'm like, hello. So 24 months, that's already 24,000 plus your other savings, you'd make it. He's like, wow. But here is the crux. I asked him very directly. I said, the question I want to ask you is this. What do you prefer? To get your house in 24 months or to enjoy your truck right now? Because it's a nice truck. And he says, well, no, I want my house. I'm like, great. But here's the insight from him. The insight in that moment was, when you're making sacrifices now, when you're changing your spending now, when you're adjusting stuff, it's not just to make you be miserable or sad, or for me to tell you what is worth spending on and not spending on. It really has to be the purpose. It really has to be your desire, your goal. What is it you really want? And is that house worth that extra Starbucks? Is that house or that goal worth whatever those other things are? And then you make a choice. So he says he's going to do it. We sat together, we did the math, we laid it all out. And I'm like, all right, man, go for it. You know what I mean? A couple months later, he and I were talking. I said, hey, how is it going? How is it building up? He's like, man, I couldn't do it. I really like my truck. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's all up to you. You have the power to make decisions for your life. If you prefer the truck, man, then enjoy your truck and just forget about the house for now. See? But don't fool yourself being frustrated. Oh, I really want a house. I really want a house. I really want a house. But guess what? You really don't really want a house because you want something else more important than the house. So if you think about these insights about being financially strong, what we want to talk about today is, how do you make decisions about your future? How do you make that decision that goes towards your end? Because the truth is, many people today are frozen and they're indecisive and they cannot make a decision, because often to get one thing, you may have to leave something else. It's impossible for me to get to over there and still stay here at the same time. I have to be able to be willing to lose what I'm experiencing here to get to there. And many people get stuck in that indecisive moment because like, well, I want that, but I still want to keep this. And you have to come to that, what we call that big boy, that adulting decision of making those necessary choices to get what you really, really want. And so the first step on it, Charity, as you think about, planning for your future, when you think about improving your financial condition, the question is, what do you really want? What is a goal? What is your purpose? What is your desire? What is that thing that you're trying to go after? Once you decide that, then step 2 is set a date. When do you want it by? Then step 3, add or calculate the financial implication of that decision. Maybe you want to go to a trip to Europe. Maybe you want to support an orphanage. Maybe you want to start a new business, whatever it may be. Maybe you want to help to do something in your community, whatever it is. If it's to leave a legacy for your kids, all of that has a financial implication. So then you just calculate that. And you say, okay, now that's the dollar value. And therefore, I need to work backwards from the dollar value. Ding, 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 ding. What do I need to start doing now to make the incremental changes to get to where I want to go? That's step 1. Then when you evaluate where you are now, then you have to decide, okay, what is in my present arrangement that needs to change to allow me to reach that goal? See, sometimes when you look ahead, the goal may seem mammoth and too big for you. But once you break it down into those incremental steps, into those incremental changes, into those incremental gains, then you're here saying, okay, what do I need to do now? There's only 2 ways to make money. 1, reduce your waste or your expenses, and 2, increase your revenue or your inflow. That's where the margin is made. And so therefore, the decisions you have to make today is, how am I going to, 1, reduce waste or reduce expenses? And then 2, how am I going to increase revenue or increase my inflow? Businesses do that all the time. Over the years of running businesses and organizations and churches, we've had to make those kind of decisions. Many companies today invest a lot into reducing waste, right? And therefore, you have to make a choice as well. See, just like any businessman, you look at your present situation and say, okay, where are there leaks? And here's something to remember. You are limited to the level of your leak. If you have leaks going out in your bucket of life and your financial bucket, you're going to always stop at the level of your leak. And therefore, the first thing I'd recommend is eliminate some leaks out of your life. When you do that, that's the first step, because $1 saved is $1 earned. So big companies, right? They use lean processing to eliminate waste. Next week, I'm going to do a talk and share with you how you can eliminate waste from your lives. This is not an idea of like cutting everything out of your life and make your life miserable. No, it's like making some smart choices about eliminating waste, reducing unnecessary things, so that you can take that saving to go towards your goal, right? And then the following, we're going to talk about how to increase those streams of income and how to make more. But it starts really first with eliminating some waste and how to plan for that. So I'm looking forward to talking to you next week. And so, hey, let's just thrive. We'll do this together.